welcome to the regular school board meeting for Independent School District 833. It is Thursday, April 26, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. 1.0 is roll call.
Pat Driscoll is absent. Heather Hirsch.
Present.
Michelle Whitty.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Ron Kath.
Here.
Tracy Brunette.
Here. 2.0, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is the approval of our agenda, and we do have one amendment to add action item 10.6, which is the approval of the termination of probationary teaching contracts. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Sharon, second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. 4.0 district highlights. National Merit Scholarships and Presidential Scholars presented by, I have a lot of people. So, Sarah Sorenson Wagner from Woodbury High School will be the first person to present.
Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm also here with Ginger Garski, principal of Park High School, and Jim Smokrovich, principal of Eastridge. And we're kind of going to do a joint effort here on recognizing our students. First, I will be recognizing 11 students from District 833 who were recently selected as National Merit Scholarship finalists. To be considered for a National Merit Scholarship, semifinalists, which they all were, had to fulfill requirements to advance to the finalist standing. They had to submit a detailed scholarship application, which includes essays and information about extracurricular achievements, awards, and leadership positions. Semifinalists also have to have an outstanding academic record, be endorsed and recommended by a school official, and earn SAT scores that confirm their qualifying test performance. From the semifinalist group, approximately 15,000 students met finalist requirements. Finalist candidates were judged to have the strongest combination of academic skills and achievements, extracurricular accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous university studies. Again, District 833 is proud to introduce 11 students that were selected for this honor. From Woodbury High School, we had 4 students. Sam Crosby Schmidt, who could not join us this evening, he is on an orchestra trip. Camilla Gobran, who is also on the orchestra trip, band and orchestra trip. Ethan Lee, give a little wave, just give a wave. And Huden Liu. And from Park High School.
Sarah, just before you keep going, you mentioned 15,000 finalists, but do you know the number that starts? Because for the public, it's something like 500,000. Yeah.
It's over a million students.
It is, okay.
That start. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to point that out, that the 15,000 is rare group of folks.
And from Park High School, we got Noah Suseg to come around from the control room, and he's here to be with us as well.
And from Eastridge?
And from Eastridge, I am proud to announce that we have 6 finalists. Ashley Holton is not with us this evening. Alexander Yang, or Alex Yang. And Luke Landon is with us. Angad Chima has a tennis match this evening, so he couldn't be here. Sabaro Garlapati is also, I think he has class at the University of Minnesota tonight. And then Molly Kaman was also unable to be with us tonight, so 6 from Eastridge as well. Thank you.
We are going to give the students an opportunity to introduce themselves and share a little bit about them after we do the Presidential Scholars.
So I'm going to give you a little information about Presidential Scholars. The selection of approximately 4,000 original program candidates generally is made based on SAT and ACT scores. Test scores in each of the state's jurisdictions are reviewed, and the total SAT score is compared to the ACT sum of scores. In each state, scores are ranked from high to low. Approximately 20 females and 20 males are selected as candidates from each state. In April, the Commission of Presidential Scholars reviews the applications of the semifinalists based on the same criteria used by the review committee. The Commission selects up to 161 U.S. presidential scholars each year. All scholars are honored for their accomplishments during the National Recognition Program held in Washington, D.C. The presidential scholars are guests of the Commission during the National Recognition Program and enjoy an expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with government officials, educators, and other accomplished people. To commemorate their achievement, the scholars are also awarded a U.S. Presidential Scholars Medallion at the ceremony sponsored by the White House. And I will start. We have one presidential scholar from Eastridge High School, and that is Ashley Holton, and we're very proud to present her to you this evening. She's not with us tonight.
And from Park High School, Noah Suseg.
And from Woodbury High School, we have Camilla Gobran, who is also a National Merit semifinalist, who is on the band trip. AJ Hoffelman, also on the band trip. Ethan Lee. Huden Liu. And David Lee. So these students were presidential scholar candidates. They all applied to move forward in the program, and we had David Lee, who was selected as one of the 630 semifinalists from the country. So David, give a wave again. The final number selected, I think Mr. Smokrovich just said, was 160. So we're excited David has moved on to the next round, and I don't know when we find out about that. Do you know? Oh, goodness. So maybe we'll be back to tell you he was selected and actually gets to go to Washington, D.C. So we are very proud of these students. I say to our seniors often to give us the opportunity to celebrate you. And all of these students behind us are so humble. You'd be surprised at how much arm twisting we have to do to get them to come here and to stand before you and to be publicly recognized. They're humble, they're generous, they're kind, and I want you to hear their voice because they do some awesome things, and to know that these are the students that our district grows. So at this time, I'm going to ask them to come forward and introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Ethan. I go to Woodbury High School. Extracurricular-wise, I do an internship at 3M, so I find that fun. I learn a lot there. This fall, I'm going to be heading off to the U of M. I'll be going to Carlson School of Management and be studying management of information systems. That should be fun.
Very good.
Hello, my name is Huden Liu. I'm a senior at Woodbury High School. This past season, I was the captain of our Woodbury swim team. And my favorite class in school is probably math. I'm a TA for our Calc 2 class. And this coming school year, I'm going to be attending the University of Minnesota, and I'll be studying computer science.
Hi, I'm Alex Yang from Eastridge High School, and my personal favorite extracurricular activity is speech and debate. So as everyone knows, no matter what you do in life, communication is always critical. It was an excellent formative experience for me in terms of building leadership skills and also learning to talk, and definitely something I urge you to support and increase support for in the future. With that being said, I'm going to the University of Pennsylvania next year to study bioengineering, so that should be fun.
Hi, I'm Luke Landon, and this past year I was the captain of the varsity hockey team at Eastridge High School, so that took up a lot of my time. And this fall I'll be attending the University of Wisconsin-Madison to study business there.
Hi, I'm David Lee. I'm a student at Woodbury, and I'm on the swim team, and I just joined the tennis team this year. And I'm the captain of, I think, all of the math and science clubs at Woodbury. And then, and then this fall, I'll be heading off to MIT to study math, biology, and I don't know. We'll see.
I'm Noah Susag from Park High School. I'm an IB diploma candidate. My favorite class is probably math. I actually haven't decided where I'm going yet, which is bad since it's crunch time. But probably University of Minnesota.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. So District Culture and Climate Ambassadors, Kevin Witherspoon, Director of Human Resources.
Good evening. So tonight I'm here to announce the Climate and Culture Ambassadors. Each one of the Climate and Cultural Ambassadors has been formally recognized at their school or their department. Armstrong Elementary, Roxanne Bonison. Bailey Elementary, Jen Fries. Cheryl Alvarez, Darcy Bertram, and Jolie Boyk. Gray Cloud Elementary, Tina Wood. Hillside Elementary, Angie Bermowski and Andy Pojanowski. Liberty Ridge Elementary, Jenny Budke. Newport Elementary, Tanya Ferderer. Sarah Boning, Matt Howie, Tracy Iaria. From Pine Hill Elementary, we have Carrie Reardon, Lisa Page, and Jessica Anderson. Red Rock Elementary, Patty Ferrarini. I said this wrong for sure. Ferrarini. From Royal Oaks, Kitty Pegler. Valley Crossing, Shannon Casey. Woodbury Elementary, Patty Diamond, Nirja Kumra, and Julie Olson. Cottage Grove Middle, Michelle Grubbs. Lake Middle School, Melissa Vogler. Oltman Middle School, Brian Boreen. Woodbury Middle School, James Lewis. Eastridge South Wash Alternative High, Brad Kolbikla. Eastridge High School, Anthony Bidwell. Woodbury High School, Debbie Bandholz. And from the DPC, Cheryl Jogger. Let's give them a round of applause.
5.0, public comment. At this time, individuals may speak to the school board on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. The board will not respond to or discuss your comments. Character abuse or specific complaints identifying staff, students, or task force members will not be permitted. The superintendent may be asked to prepare a response to your concerns. Our policy allows 3 minutes. And we do have one person who signed up, and I apologize because the last name I'm not going to get. So, Captain.
Delta Zulu Victor, DZVON, 3 consonants in a row.
Yes.
It goes, I'm Captain Bob Desvonic. I'm the executive officer for the Marine Corps Recruiting Command here in Minneapolis. We oversee Marine Corps recruiting for Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, a little bit of Iowa, and a little bit of Wisconsin. I just want to say what you guys do academically, the students coming out, I see it throughout the rest of the country. You are top notch here, and I know it comes down to this kind of effort that comes and speaks before these meetings. What I am here to ask, though, is we have great involvement in Park, Eastridge, Woodbury, however, though. We have limited access. We're allowed to go into the school, but where we do best is going into the lunchrooms. We go into the lunchroom. When the students see us, they want to be us. Quite frankly, they're missing out on opportunities. Those opportunities are educational. In a 4-year term, we pay for college. If a Marine's taking college while he's in, he can go all the way up, get a bachelor's, and it's a 4-year commitment. When you get out, he's also offered a GI Bill, another 4-year education. There's opportunities that these students are missing that Park is capitalizing on and Eastridge is capitalizing on. Opportunities through aviation, through music. I have some of the best bands in the Marine Corps, a band that plays strictly for the President of the United States. We have opportunities that are out there that take us, that put these kids on a path for success. We have a structured lifestyle, a lifestyle that holds them accountable under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is a great opportunity, a great opportunity. Marines have orbited the Earth. We have Marines right now at the bottom of the ocean in a submarine. We have Marines working on the NASA program. All I want to do is sit with a table inside a lunchroom and have the students see these opportunities. Education, leadership, foundation for success. You're limiting your students if you don't allow this. I thank you all for allowing me to come here. I know I have a short period, and I don't want to put the Marines in a position where we get cut short. I don't. Thank you all. Please capitalize on this opportunity, Dr. Jacobus. We will make you, and we will listen. You give us the left and right lateral limit, that tells us where we can go. We will fall in. But we're asking for one time a month in the lunchrooms, which we have pure success in. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service, sir.
Yes. 6.0 are our consent agenda items. The consent agenda items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the board meeting. However, board members had the opportunity to review the items and may have requested that one be moved to an action item. So we have none this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Katie and second by Sharon, and I will ask Ron if you would please read our gifts.
Yeah, thank you, Board Burnett, or Chairperson Burnett. One of the things that we approve within our consent agenda item this evening is item 6.6, and that's the acceptance of gifts. This past month, we had over $84,663 in generous donations given to the district, which gives us a school year total now of over $372,750. So from the board and from all our students, we want to give a warm thank you to all those generous donations. You know, we only capture the financial ones, but we know there's tons of hours that are also given to this district, and we thank you for those. Tonight after the board meeting, we do run all those folks that generously donated, their name will pop up. And if you do see them out in the public for us, certainly stop them if you know them and say a thank you for our district and our students. So really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.0 are workshop items. Those are scheduled for our May 10 meeting. 8.0 information items. 8.1 is our early childhood program with Michelle Barries, Director of Special Services, and Bob Lawrence, Director of Community Ed.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Jacobus. Community Ed and Special Services is excited to be able to jointly present tonight and share some of the highlights with our early childhood programming. You're going to learn a little bit about early childhood family ed and early childhood special ed. However, I think it's the ongoing collaboration and alignment between these two programs that's the key to providing the excellent services and supports to our earliest learners and their families.
So we have our leadership team here tonight who's going to be doing the bulk of the presentation. We have members from both early childhood special ed and from community education. Just a little framework. We offer programming for kids starting at birth, and these programs lead all the way up through kindergarten entrance. So you hear about our Birth to 2 program, our early childhood family education, our pre-K program, which is preschool for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and they'll kind of break that down. And what we really are excited about you to hear is the alignment that's been happening, particularly over the last 2 years. So you'll hear details about the depth of the program, but also about specific things that have been put into play to allow us to work better together to serve these youngest learners. So I'm going to pass it on to Joyce Beard, who's our Early Childhood Family Services Manager, and she will start the presentation and then introduce others along the way. So thank you.
So thank you for providing us the opportunity to present on the important work happening in our early childhood programs in our school district. The goals of our presentation tonight. The goals of our presentation tonight are to provide you with key research in early childhood, to provide you with an overview of our programs, both defining and providing you with the scope of our programming, and to share with you the important alignment work we have been involved with that supports early childhood best practice and our strategic direction, our district strategic direction. So here you will see our strategic pillars of impact in early childhood. And this shows the various approaches linked throughout our programs. We have 4 pillars. We have assessment, our pyramid approach to social emotional learning, our parent and community engagement, and our focused and aligned curriculum. Throughout our presentation, we will define each of these areas. So some of the key research is defined by the Harvard Center on the Developing Child and is framed as 5 numbers to remember. Neural connections rapidly are happening during the first 3 years of life. Vocabulary disparities begin as early as 18 months. And adverse childhood experiences in the first 3 years of life are linked to developmental delays as well as long-term health consequences. Economists have also shown a return on investment in high-quality early childhood programs of a $4 to $9 return for every dollar invested. Program participants followed into adulthood benefited from increased earnings, while the public realized returns in the form of reduced special education, welfare, and crime costs, and increased tax revenues from program participants later in life. I would like to share with you a brief video on early brain architecture that further supports the importance of early childhood education.
Of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
So all of this shows the importance of our early childhood education and our commitment to that in our district. So slide 6 shows the blending of our programs and the umbrella larger programs that our early childhood programs are housed in. So community education houses early childhood family education, preschool and early childhood screening, while special education houses early childhood special education birth through 2 years and early childhood special education ages 3 to 5 years. And then showing at a glance this year the numbers of kids that we had enrolled in our early childhood programs, and this included early childhood special ed, early childhood family education, and our preschool programs, as well as the number of parents that were enrolled in our early childhood family education program. This does not include our outreach numbers, our home visit numbers. Those are included in our slide here. But we have 48 classrooms currently to serve the children and the families. We have 17 district sites, 12 community sites, 150 classes offered. We have 115 early childhood classroom staff. That includes teachers and professionals, and then all other related early childhood staff total 67. And so then the numbers that are not included in there partially are the early childhood family education home visits, where we have had 159 so far this year, and 1,147 children have been screened in our district this year. So the growth, we've had tremendous growth in all of our program areas, and in particularly ECFE, Early Childhood Family Education, which is our parent education program, is growing tremendously. And I'm thinking that this is likely due to the increase in state allocated funding for early childhood family education in the last several years, as well as some more funding for preschool programming. Our increase in early childhood special education referrals, as well as increased outreach efforts.
So Joyce, quick question. The participants getting screened, so if a child moves into our district that's, say, 4 years old, do we go to the other district to see if they've been screened, or do we screen a 4-year-old because we want it to go through our process?
I'm going to have our screening coordinator, Kari.
I'm Kari Deloria. I'm the Early Childhood Screening Coordinator. If a child moves into our district who is 3 years or older, the family can share the summary if they've been screened in their previous district. We can also call inter-district to check. If they register for a preschool program, we have the ability to do that. But we will also screen them when they come.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to pass this over to Kristen Johnson, who is our early childhood special education supervisor.
Good evening. Our early childhood program, our early childhood special education program, is also growing. And if you look at this data reflected here, we're looking at growth in our evaluations from 14-15 to today. You will see the number of referrals, the number of evaluations completed, and the percent of students that qualified for special education services. If you look to the far right in that 17-18 column, that was where we were in December. However, that growth has changed. At this time, we've received a total of 253 referrals. We've completed 176 evaluations, and within that, 42% of the students have qualified for special education services. And that's in our birth to 2 programming. Within our 3 to 5 programming, we've received 315 referrals. We've completed 157 evaluations, and 40% of our students have qualified for services. So with our growth means our population is becoming more diverse. 26 languages are represented in ECFE, and 42 languages are represented in our preschool programming. I'm now going to hand off to Susan, and she's going to talk about our ECFE coordinator to talk more about our programming.
One of our programs that helps to meet the needs of this amazingly diverse population is ECFE. Early Childhood Family Education is a universal access program that is partially funded by state allocations, as Joyce mentioned. Because of that, no family is turned away. It's pretty reflective in our 1,915 adults that we serve, parents that we serve in our programming. In fact, our unique program has become a national model for other states that are looking to enact and begin their own parent education models. ECFE has helped to support families and children birth through age 5 with developmentally appropriate information and resources for 44 years. We believe that the parent is the child's first and most important teacher, so we work to support the creation of parent-child relationships that promote healthy development and the growth of young children. James Heckman, a Nobel laureate in economics, states that in order to foster the skills of American children, we have to help American families. His research focuses on working with birth to 5 families and shows that investing in the early and equal development of human potential leads to a more capable, productive, and valuable American workforce. These gains bring dividends for generations to come, and this is the work that we are doing every day. Traditional ECFE classes offer 3 components: parent education, early childhood education, and parent and child interaction. And the interaction takes place in the early childhood classroom with licensed teachers. These components foster the parent engagement of birth to 5 families that the Heckman research supports. Let's see here. On this screen, you'll see a number of collaborative efforts with community agencies. I'm going to highlight just a few of them for you. We do work closely with Woodwinds Hospital, offering new parent connection classes and room visits. This allows us to begin serving our littlest learners on the first days of their life. We are able to support their new parents by providing developmental information and resources for their new babies. Additionally, our partnership with local home daycare providers gives us the opportunity to connect our work with the pyramid model, which you'll hear more about in a little bit. Training and bridging the important development of self-regulation in children between daycare, home, and school, preparing them for lifelong learning. Finally, our innovative work in online parent education has led to a texting program called Preschool Text to Connect. This program puts strategies in the hands of parents that encourage healthy relationships with their children and promote social and emotional learning, all delivered in a clear and concise text to their handheld device several times a week. Our work with this Text to Connect program is now being replicated by other school districts in our area because of its innovation. These are very exciting times. I'm going to hand it over to Terry Odegaard now. She's our preschool coordinator, and she'll share more with you about our preschool programming.
Our ECFE and community outreach programs build nicely into our preschool classes as we continue to support families throughout their child's early childhood development. We offer preschool programming for 3- and 4-year-old children. Our 3-year-old preschool classes are currently offered at Valley Crossing, Red Rock, and the District Program Center. Our 4-year-old preschool classes are offered at each elementary building as well as the District Program Center. 4-year-old preschool is currently half day, 5 days a week. In a recent survey, 60% of parents expressed the desire for more options for preschool. So next year we will be offering 2-day-a-week, 3-day-a-week, and 5-day-a-week preschool classes, as well as an extended day option for students. We also offer evening preschool and classes with a parent education component. Each of our preschool classes have 6 slots reserved for placement of students with special needs, and Kristen and Terry are going to share more information about how students are placed later in the presentation. We currently have over 900 students enrolled in our 3- and 4-year-old programs. Preschool is funded through parent fees, state allocations, and ECSE dollars. And now Kari, our ECFE and Early Childhood Screening Coordinator, is going to speak about screening.
Early childhood screening is a comprehensive peek into a child's growth and development. The screening appointments usually last about an hour and are composed of a nurse component that looks at height and weight, vision and hearing, and reviews immunization records. The screening also includes large and fine motor, thinking, language, and communication skills, and a parent report on social emotional development. Screening in early childhood supports children's readiness for school and promotes health and development. Screening at 3 is preferred, but a child can be screened anywhere between the age of 3 and kindergarten entrance and is required by state mandate to happen before entering kindergarten. To date, we have screened 88% of those incoming kindergartners for next year's class. Of the 1,192 children we've screened this year between ages of 3 and 5, 6.5% of those children were referred for early childhood special education evaluation. 5.5% were referred for to health providers, and another 5% were referred to district programming such as ECFE, preschool, or our home visit program. Because our preschool programs require the screening to happen before registration or within 90 days of starting school, many families who come to screening are already enrolled in our preschool programs or planning to enroll in the fall. Kristen will be speaking next about other ways children are referred to early childhood special education.
Early childhood special education receives referrals in the following ways. We receive the referrals from the screening team, from our families that seek out services, from physicians, as well as child care providers. We receive a majority of our referrals from the Minnesota Department of Education's Help Me Grow website, where all of these individuals I've listed can refer on that website, and that is where we gain most of our referrals from. Early childhood special education services are provided by our early childhood special education team. This team consists of teachers, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, physical therapists, and vision and hearing teachers. Our goal in early childhood special education is to align as much as possible with general education to promote inclusive practice. In early childhood special education, we serve students and their families from ages birth to 2 and 3 to 5. Our birth through 2 team works in the home, and the focus of this team is to work with our parents and our families as they are the primary teacher of their child. Our work is to partner with these families and to create learning outcomes for their children. Our 3 to 5 programming is personalized. We identify needs first and place accordingly. We begin our continuum in the least restrictive environment and move to the more restrictive environment. Our services start in the community, where we follow up with teachers on with consulting. We also consult in the preschool classrooms. We have teachers team teaching in early childhood special ed and early childhood family ed. We have a combination of integrated classrooms where we have a center-based classroom, and students are also allowed to push in and have that inclusive experience. We also have self-contained classrooms where students are working in a small group to gain the skills to hopefully have that inclusive experience.
So looking at our pillars once more, Susan has already touched on the parent and community engagement piece. So now we're going to take a closer look at assessment, the pyramid model, and our aligned curriculums. So early childhood is required by the Department of Education to use a state-approved assessment tool. We chose TS Gold because of its continuum of development for children birth to 3rd grade. It also allows multiple teachers who work with the same student to share data easier, which reduces repetitive testing. At a community conversation, we learned that other school districts who are also implementing TS Gold were creating implementation plans because of the tool's breadth and depth. And those implementation plans were a 3 to 5 year plan. So our implementation plan also needed to include revising our current progress report to reflect the TS Gold outcomes. So we had cross-functional teams work through an impact difficulty matrix for each area of development to determine our tactical starting points for data collection and reporting student growth to parents. This work has yielded a deeper understanding of the assessment tool for staff, as well as a new progress report that is aligned with the current kindergarten progress report. And we were able to accomplish that all in the first year of implementation, so we're pretty excited. The next slide, this slide demonstrates a snapshot of the kind of data our teaching teams and administrators have at their fingertips to personalize instruction for our students. The typical range of development for a 3-year-old student in the TS Gold assessment tool is illustrated in the green areas. The fall and winter labels indicate the student's placement at each data checkpoint. This slide does not include spring assessment data because that checkpoint will happen in mid-May for our students. So now Terry Shader, our ECSE coordinator, is going to provide an overview of the pyramid model and the curriculums we are utilizing in our programs.
As you saw, one of our pillars centers around curriculum. We have worked very hard over the last several years on aligning our curriculums and expectations for all staff in early childhood, both in general and special education. Social emotional skill development for young children is the foundation we build upon in early childhood. The ability of young children to self-regulate allows them to focus on overall learning. Several years ago, we surveyed all of the kindergarten teachers in the district. We wanted to know what kindergarten teachers felt were the most important skills for students to have as they entered kindergarten. As you can see, the areas of most importance revolved around social emotional learning, including skills such as identifying emotions, sitting at circle, and waiting their turn, as well as having positive peer interactions. The survey strongly supported our focus of social emotional development as a critical component in early childhood programming. Another important pillar in early childhood is the pyramid model. In order to build an effective workforce, we must start early by developing nurturing and responsive relationships in high-quality supportive environments. Early childhood was awarded a grant from MDE for a 5-year plan to implement the pyramid model in our district. This was a $100,000 grant that allowed us to build a framework around social emotional skill development in a tiered system. We are presently in year 3 of our pyramid model implementation. With this grant, we have been able to train all of our staff on social emotional strategies and develop a peer coaching model in our classrooms. We have also developed a data collection system for children who may be struggling in the area of social emotional learning so that we may provide personalized interventions to help them be more successful. Second step is a support curriculum for the pyramid model. It teaches skills that help children pay attention, remember directions, and control their behavior. This curriculum emphasizes positive modeling and provides tools for children to use to build relationships with both peers and adults and to learn to deal with conflict. The early childhood staff developed a scope and sequence through a human design experience this past summer for the school year that outlines activities for each month that supports social emotional learning. Another part of our aligned curriculum in early childhood is handwriting without tears. This curriculum is developmentally appropriate and teaches children through play, singing, and building. In the picture, you can see Matman, who is built with wooden sticks. Matman is used in preschool to develop body awareness, motor, and counting skills. Following a developmental continuum, these wooden sticks are also used to create the letters of the alphabet. Through these experiences, children develop the ability to draw a picture of a person, which leads to the development of writing skills. We have seen tremendous growth in student skills from the beginning of the school year to now utilizing this program.
So to wrap up our key messages, first to say, we have a very strong shared leadership commitment in early childhood that I think has helped us to be really successful in what we're doing. But early childhood lays the foundation. In early childhood, as you can see, has 5 program areas housed under community ed and special education with specific allocated state funding. We are laser focused on best practices for young children's personalized growth, and we are large and growing. So thinking about facilities for the future would be something that we would ask our school board to think about. And then we want to leave you with another short video demonstrating the power of an I love you ritual used in our early childhood classrooms. This is one of many strategies we utilize to support relationship building and connection.
I love you rituals are designed to build bonds between people so that each person in the interaction feels a sense of connection. Connection with parents, connection with teachers, and connection between children. This sense of connection creates a biochemistry that optimizes the function of our brain.
With bright eyes and nice
How you doing? My name is DJ Baptiste.
Can you get on your knees?
Twinkle, little star, what a wonderful child you are. With bright eyes and rosy cheeks, talented person from head to toe. Twinkle, little star, what a wonderful child you are.
Can I have one more?
One more bear hug for Mr. DJ.
Thank you so much.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. With bright eyes and rosy cheeks, a talented mother from head to feet. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. I love you.
Are there any questions?
I have a couple questions. Really lovely
Hey, guys.
presentation. Thank
Today-
you very much. So, is our program similar to other districts? I mean, can you kind of talk about how what we're doing in early childhood compares to some of our neighboring or maybe similar sized districts?
Well, I can speak to the general education side and saying that most all school districts have early childhood family education. They have state allocated funding for school readiness. So they have preschool and then early childhood screening. I think what's unique about what we've been doing is our alignment and looking at best practices and evidence-based practices in early childhood and ensuring alignment throughout our programming in all areas of our programming. So really thinking about our parent education program too, and how are we aligning our strategic pillars to our early childhood family education program and helping support parent information that's crucial to children's development and success.
Joyce, is a 5-day program, that's not as common, is it? A full week?
You know, I think probably it's more common to have multiple options for families. I think, you know, there has been some evidence with children that are high need and more intensive programming being most impactful. And so I think there are districts that look at, you know, there's been districts that have been increasing the number of hours of preschool for children.
I'll just say, so one other thing, I think you talked about space. You know, so is it, to me, the most challenging thing about being in the school board is learning more and more about how many more ways we can help students. It's fabulous, but we are, you know, challenged, obviously, by a finite budget to do things with. So I really, I just think the ECFE program is such a great example of something like teaching teachers, teaching parents to be successful in the homes. And I'm just wondering, I'd be interested in hearing more about what you think about the building needs, because I think that, you know, that was always the big challenge about the growth of preschool funding, is that a lot of things are funded, and that's how they end up as program. And then there's a need from the general fund at some point to further grow our programming, and then we're stuck with how do we pay everybody to get things done. So anyway, that's just kind of always the thing we live with, right? So I'd be curious if you talk a little bit about your building needs, and, you know, if you have thoughts about what those are or how to maximize the resources we have.
Unless Michelle, you want. You know, one thing that we're really fortunate when we talk about our preschool, our 4-year-old pre-K program, is we do have space that's in every building. And we were, when Dr. Jacobus talked about having a 5-day-a-week program in those buildings, we've been fortunate because we've been doing that for a number of years. As those student populations K-5 grow, will we continue to have that space? And then the other piece to consider from an early childhood special ed is a lot of the spaces where we offer programming, there needs to be additional classrooms for those support services. So when we look ahead to the growth of both our ECFE, our preschool, and then the special ed program, definitely every year we meet, the group of us, and look at what space is available, where can we put things, where can we put classes. A lot of districts around us have moved toward an early learning center model, which allows co-location of services, which really is an ideal situation, because then the special ed services are co-located with the community services. We're not obviously anywhere near there yet, but what I would say is, with the increased funding, you talked about the increased funding from the state, and then where does that leave the general fund? Currently, the ECFE and the pre-K program run self-sufficient under the budget. That hasn't always been the case. We have supported pre-K with the general fund in the past to help it grow. And then also ECSE receives designated funding, which helps support it. So, I mean, we certainly, as we grow, it puts strains on the resources throughout the district, but they are self-contained and funded through the state aid, through local levies, through parent fees, and so forth. So, but really, I would anticipate in the next season of time, whether that's months or years, we would be back talking about whether it's an early learning center or additional space in our buildings, look like to support our early learning program.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Just some of the things that I'd like to add. Bob did a very nice job, but logistically on the special ed side, you have students that might be 2.5 years old going into a school, an elementary school, where you have kindergarten through 5th graders, and that's sometimes a little scary when you have 2.5-year-olds all the way to 11, 12-year-olds in one building to manage. The other thing too that's a little bit of a challenge is early childhood, family ed, and special ed run on a different calendar and time frame, and so the start and end times of those programs are different sometimes than school staff. And so one of the challenges I came up with this year was the healthcare specialist or a nurse. So these programs needed somebody to supervise or have some nursing services, but the elementary site was off before the early childhood staff was off. So some of those logistical pieces too, and then staffing for support services like OT and speech and PT, psychologist services, and between early childhood and the school site, who manages that, who's attends those IEP meetings and some of those pieces. I think the other logistical thing too is, as elementary sites may grow in sections or shrink in sections, we're always sort of scrambling to, well, now early childhood can't be here this year, we have to go to another site. And so really building that community for the family and that teacher, they get at one school, they learn the process, the culture of the school, they really hook in to be a part of that, they just start, and then they have to go, that program has to go to another site. So some of our earliest learners, we try to avoid this as much as possible, may have to go to multiple sites before they hit kindergarten. This team does a really great job of doing that, but some of our most fragile earliest learners have multiple sites they're transitioning to. So having one site where we can continue the collaboration, and I just really want to echo that, is being in this role has really, I've been more involved with early childhood, and just watching the wonderful things that both of these programs are doing together, the staff development, the PD, the sharing of ideas, they're talking the same language, and I think it's really important for our families. That's the first experience that children have with school. That's this first experience that families have in our community with our district, and they do such a great job of putting them on the right foot for that long haul going forward. So.
Just a quick comment. First of all, that's what I wanted to echo from Michelle. I really enjoyed the presentation. I enjoyed the leadership. Thank you for sharing your evening with us tonight and bringing that information. I really enjoyed how you all interacted and brought the information together. You did it, from my perspective, in a way that gave us a little bit of detail without getting us too much in the weeds. So really appreciate you coming forward with it tonight.
And I would just like to say thank you too, and thank you for all your work. I actually started ECFE when my oldest was 9 months old, and it was a lifesaver, not only to have that adult to talk to rather than just a 9-month-old, but just to have that different perspective as well, being a new mom and thinking that I had to do everything. And then the first thing you kind of learn is that you have to sort of lower your expectations because your child is young only once, which I'm learning now with a grandchild who just rolled over today. So it happens very quickly. So, but thank you very much. It's an awesome program. So love it.
And I would say I've had the fortunate experience to see our parent classes and the early childhood things that we do, and didn't experience that as a parent, and would have loved to. Maybe with my kids being in their 20s now, that would have helped. But I would tell you that we're trying to implement administration without tears. Just like the handwriting. So Julie and I talked about how we could do that. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. 9.0 are discussion items. We don't have any this evening. 10.0 are action items. 10.1 is the approval of our 1920 calendar. Dr. Jacobus will present.
Thank you. As you remember, last meeting, we brought forward a proposal for our 1920 calendar where we made some, I think, significant changes that I think will be great for teachers to be able to meet the needs of kids, and ultimately, obviously, great for kids and parents. So we looked at some work time incorporated in this calendar, some professional development time, and coupled with the assessment days that we put in last year, I think this calendar really moves us forward in a number of ways. So we're bringing it back today for approval.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Moved by Ron, second by Sharon. Any questions on the calendar?
Just a comment. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Jacobus and the team, also the calendar committee, for bringing the idea forward. Especially, we had a number of needs that were identified. And as a reminder, one of the key changes of this calendar was freeing up some time for our teachers to actually do those assessment days. To me, that was a big win for the collaboration of not only the district, but our teachers' voice. So I was really proud of that, how that came together. And again, as we move forward with these calendar committees and other committees, I'm just a big believer that that's where the voice can come through. So please bring those voices through. We're showing as a board and as an administrative wing that we're willing to listen and make those changes. So I really applaud Dr. Jacobus, your leadership with that, and also the calendar committee bringing those ideas forward.
All right, all those in favor of the 1920 calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 10.2, approval of policy 903.5. Kevin Witherspoon will join us again.
Good evening. I'll be joining you several times tonight. My purpose tonight is to seek approval of proposed updates to policy 903.5. As you know, we talked in the past that policy 404 was updated, but 903, they need to mimic each other. And so tonight I'm here to seek approval, and the administration recommends approving the changes to policy 903.5.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Sharon and second by Katie. Any questions, comments?
I have one question, and I know I should have asked this last time, but it's really not changing anything. Does the other policy talk about when we do background checks? Like regarding like chaperones? The only reason I ask is because it came up like 2 days ago. Somebody asked about, I'm chaperoning a field trip, and they're like, oh, do you have a background check? I'm like, yeah, I did one when I started. And they're like, oh, as long as you're in the school once a year, you don't have to do another one.
That's correct.
Isn't that a little odd, I guess. I mean, things can change frequently, so for like 10 years, as long as I go on a field trip every year, I wouldn't have to do another background check.
That's the current policy. Any other questions?
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.3, approval of 2018-19 long-term facility maintenance, debt service, operating capital, and trust fund budget. Dan Pyan, Director of Finance.
Good evening, Chair Brunette, members of the school board, Superintendent Jacobus. The long-term facility maintenance, operating capital, debt service, and trust fund budgets were presented to the school board at the last meeting. We generally like to approve those this early so that plans can be made to get summer work done. And tonight I'm just asking for your approval, or if you have any questions on it. We presented last week and the information was in the packet.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve these items.
I'll second.
Moved by Katie, second by Ron. Any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.4, approval of our 17-18 revised budget.
Back?
No.
As you know, school districts annually revise their budgets. It's part of our process. It gives us a better idea of what's going to happen at the end of the year. It gives us a chance to look at enrollment numbers and contract settlements. So tonight I would like to present our revised budget and talk a little bit about what the future plans will be as we look at the next year's budget. And we know there's still some factors out there that we're looking at. When we did sorry, I don't know if I have enough time. I probably could have told you the story first. It's baseball season now. I could tell you a baseball story. By the way, the Twins had 3-1 all day today. They lost in the bottom of the ninth, 3-run homer. We could probably take half our fund balance, go out to Vegas and bet against the Twins against the Yankees, double and triple it. I guarantee you they'll lose in Yankee Stadium.
True.
So there's a couple older gentlemen that were lifelong friends. We'll say Ray and Ed, and they were lifelong friends and big baseball fans, and they were in their 90s, and eventually Ray was nearing the end, and as Ed went to visit him, Ed said to Ray, he said, when you get up there, can you tell me if there's baseball in heaven? And Ray said, well, sure, I will. And he passed away peacefully. And a couple nights later, Ed was sleeping, and he heard a voice from Ray. And Ray said, Ed, I have good news and bad news. And he says, really, what is it? He said, well, there's baseball in heaven. Well, what's the bad news? You're scheduled to pitch next Wednesday. As I was doing the budget PowerPoints, and I know we kind of do the same ones over and over, and then I kind of think, well, repetition is good, so the public can understand how it all works, and how, and so you can understand how it all works. I realize I normally just bury the lead, and so I'm not going to bury the lead anymore. And after this slide, you'll see how we're going to end up, and then we'll work the other way to see how we got to that point, or what we're guessing we got to that point. And I think that next year's budget will be much more interesting. But as you might recall, when you passed this original budget last June, we projected about $223,899,986 million in revenues, and just about $147,000 less than that in expenses. Oops. So in the revised budget, and we try to keep a real conservative approach because I really don't want to have any big glaring errors going in when we get the audit and we find out, oh, we were off by X amount of dollars. But as we look at the revised revenues, we think that we're going to be about 0.31% within the original budget. It's a slight increase. And then the revised expenses are about less than 1% different than the original budget also. Unfortunately, when you have a budget this size, even that little percentage, can add up to six-figure numbers. So the revised budget is showing a deficit of about $792,000. Now that could come in better if a few things happen, but that's and that doesn't necessarily mean our fund balance could be bad because we might be spending down a bunch of our restricted accounts. Our unassigned balance wouldn't be so bad. But we're looking at a difference in our fund balance of about $900,000, which would be a direct decrease in our fund balance. Keep hitting the wrong button. So what's the differences in our local revenues? Local revenues are basically everything that's not state or federal. We're looking at an increase of about $850,000. That could be lots of things. That could be increases in admissions. It could be increases in fees. It could be increases in third-party billing. Oftentimes it's increases in donations to Fund 9. Our state aid revenues, we're projecting it's going to be about $200,000 less than projected, about 0.12%. And that could just be a matter of your mixture between high school kids and elementary kids. Because we see our enrollment's going to be a little better, but we may have more elementary which aren't weighted as high as the high school kids. And maybe we have more PSEO kids than we anticipated, things like that. And then our federal aid revenues are, basically we're really close on that budget. It's within about $16,000. Those are generally easier to budget because, we get informed of grants. We did find out that our federal title grants were way lower than we had anticipated from last year, and unfortunately, we caught it in time for the budget, but we didn't catch it in time when they staffed up, so we had to make some adjustments on the fly, and also concerns the issues we have with carryover. So where does revenue come from? As you know, in Minnesota, school districts are funded by a combination of state aid, which is bolstered by income taxes and sales taxes, by local levies, which are property taxes, by federal aid, and by fees. The state aid is our biggest chunk of revenue. The basic formula is $6,188 per pupil unit, per adjusted pupil unit. We also get money in the form of compensatory dollars, and that's driven by the number of free and reduced lunch pupils you have. We have referendum aid, which is a combination of the referendum authority and the aid that can come with it. It's supposed to equalize the tax burden. We have local optional revenue aid, which is the same type of deal. And we have operating capital aid, which is based on, it's per pupil, and it's also based on the age of the building. And our operating capital revenue is a combination of aid and levy, which comes in at about $200, $195 per student total. Of course, our biggest source of revenue is the basic formula, plus any kind of referendum authority multiplied by the number of pupil units we have. So we look at enrollment very closely. We're constantly looking at every month. This year I got even more conservative. I'm not really counting September numbers, although we get counted for all the times the kiddos are in school, but September numbers are kind of shaky because kids come and go so fast. But we're projecting that at the end of this year we'll have 18,538 ADMs, which is an adjusted average daily membership, which is basically the number of students you have in school. And we're showing a slight increase for the future. I usually budget about 0.5% per year in enrollment increase. So the original enrollment was budgeted 18,438 ADMs, and revised it at 18,538 ADMs. And mostly that was done as an adjustment to the number of PSEO kids that we're guessing at. And to explain that, I mean, we might have a bunch of kids in high school that are in PSEO, and we will get credit for at least one period of theirs, but the more they're in a college, the less will get counted for them because they're not in our building, but we still count them in our head count. So when you look at the number of kids in school, and even the number of ones that graduate, we don't always get paid for all of them because sometimes they're in a college course, and then the college gets paid by the state for those kids. Other ways that revenue comes in is alternative attendance revenue, gifted and talented. You can look at these things on the slides. LEP, which is English EL program. Extended time, literally incentive aid. We get about $1 million for that. Permanent school fund, it's a land trust fund. We get about $700,000 for that. And then special education aid it's supposed to be a new system, which is a no harm system. We budget about $23.5 million in special education aid, and that's to pay for $41 million in expenses. So you can see it doesn't quite cover the expenses we have. And that difference, in a real general sense, is called the special education cross-subsidy. The reason I want to show you this chart is because I just want people to realize that we're funded by the state. Most of our funding comes from the state. And then you got to look at what the state's revenue sources are, and the biggest section in this chart is income tax. And the second biggest chart is sales tax. So we don't have those are two volatile sources of income. I mean, they can kind of figure out how steady they can be, but you got to realize that they go up and down with the economy. And that means our funding goes up and down by the economy also. Expenditure-wise, we are the biggest chunk of expenditures for the state, K-12 education. That's South Washington County, but K-12 overall. And then the second biggest chunk of spending for the state is Department of Human Services. And then we also get some federal aids. We don't, relatively speaking, we don't get a lot. We get title spending, we get title dollars, we get school nutrition dollars, which is not, we don't keep track of that in the general fund, and we get special education dollars. Although the special education dollars are lacking way behind in what promises that were made by the federal government. Like I said, federal special education is supposed to offset the costs not covered by state funding sources. As you can see, our expenses not covered by state funding sources was about $18 million. We do not get $18 million from the federal government. Title I, for those are specific dollars that are used for specific purposes, Title II and Title III. And then the rest of our revenues come from the local people in the form of property tax levy. It's our second largest source of income. In the fiscal year 18, we had the referendum plus the local optional revenue, totaling about $1,886 per ADM. At that time, we were about $442 under the cap. Last fall, we had an election, and we're authorized to collect another $375 per pupil unit, which would put us closer to the cap. Now the cap will go up again, so I figure we'll be about $100 below the cap. We also have different levies that don't have to go to a vote for operating capital for, this is old, I have health and safety in old facilities, but as you know, it's long-term facility maintenance now. Safe schools, gifted and talented, community ed, debt service, things like that. Expenditure-wise, how did we do? Well, some of it depends on what's going to happen as we finish up the year. Salary-wise, we were within 0.03% based on what we know now. $46,000 out of $132 million, so that was pretty good. Benefits, we actually decreased our budget by about $1.2 million, 2%, as the health insurance costs were negotiated in different ways than we anticipated. Services, we have an increase of about $1.5 million, 7%, A lot of that are things like, as you know, snow removal this year was very high, about $750,000. We usually budget about 600. And even looking back 2 years ago, we only spent about 430,000. So you can see it's almost doubled in 2 years in snow removal, and that's basically, we just have to, rely on nature. We can't do much about it. Supplies, we increased that by about $1 million. That kind of depends on how much we keep in the carryover account for that. There wasn't anything that was real pressing about our supply budget. The capital budget kind of goes up and down based on the long-term facility maintenance projects that are approved. And then we had an increase of about $900,000, and some of that has to do with some entries we have to make for pension entries. So as we talk about expenditures, and the most important factor in controlling is staffing, and staffing is predicated by class size. And education is a service industry, so most of our money is going to go to salaries and benefits. 70% of our salaries belong to the teachers. So as you can see, class size affects how many teachers we have, and most of our money is spent on teachers. Those are the things that really move our expenditure budget. Contract negotiations are important. It's important to know what's going to happen, though we don't always know. It's hard to do a budget sometimes. You really don't want to negotiate through the budget, but you also want to have a reasonable idea where we're at. And then step systems and lane systems add automatic multipliers that at least we know they're going to happen, but we have to put those into the formula. Our benefits include health insurance, VEBA contributions, TRA, PERA, life insurance, dental insurance. And so by the time you add the salaries and benefits, there's not a lot left in the budget for the other things. We are always looking at ways to lower our health insurance. By law, we have to go out for bid every 2 years now. This is a bid year, and those are usually good years for us. And we probably will look at both, a regular health insurance and the self-insurance plan also. We started using VEBAs a while ago, a form of health savings account that's actually kind of motivates people to control their health care costs a little bit more, because whatever they don't use, you get to keep, as opposed to whatever in the old days, whatever you don't use, the insurance company keeps. And like I said, self-insurance is a possibility. The other things we talked about already, in services, a lot of our service money, our tuition's paid to students that go to other districts. We also spend a lot of money. I just went to a meeting with 916, our intermediate district, and saw what we anticipate for our bills next year. That's probably our largest cost in that area. And of course, utilities, snow removal. Hopefully it won't snow anymore this year. I shouldn't have said that, I suppose. Transportation, property and liability insurance, staff development, and legal costs. And supplies are supplies. Classroom supplies, general supplies, textbooks, and fuel. Probably one that's a little more volatile is the fuel. Sometimes we do contract, but then we worry, did we contract at too high a price, things like that. Classroom supplies and a lot of the general supplies are supplies that are allocated in a discretionary matter to the sites. So if they don't spend all their site money, then we carry it over. So a lot of times that carryover number is going to show as a budget cost, but it never really gets spent, so it does stay in the fund balance. So that's always kind of an X factor. I included this in the presentation so you can look at it. We're not going to go through each line, but these are the latest numbers that the Department of Education has posted, and these are for 16-17. They don't, obviously they wouldn't have 17-18 in there yet, but this chart shows our rank amongst the metro, what they call the Metro 48 districts. So you can see the different categories that the state breaks down by program: district level administration, school level administration, regular instruction. They're pretty self-explanatory. And on the far right, you can see where we rank among our spending habits. Somehow we're ranked 49th out of 48 districts, so I still haven't figured out how they came up with 49 unless it was like, I was telling people, it was like the Big Ten who added schools but didn't change their name. Or we're just so low that they just said, you know, you guys should be 49th, so we'll just leave 48 blank. But that's our district level administration. But our regular instruction is 19, so we're not, you know, in the top 10. We're the 6th biggest district in the metro area. 6th biggest district in the state. Rochester's 7th, but they're not metro. So we're 19th in regular instruction, so we're kind of in the middle there. It kind of shows our money is going into the classroom and not, you know, to administration. Even our operations and maintenance is 34th. And then that's the metro ones. And then there's also one with the state. So there's 333 school districts, and our district level administration expenses rank 330th. So we're going to find those 3 districts and see what they're doing that so much better than us. But in there, our regular instruction is 69th.
I mean, that's pretty.
And our pupil support is 37th. So, but you know, I just wanted to show that, you know, compared to other districts, we really do pinch our pennies, and having a low fund balance isn't a reflection on us not being cognizant of the fact that, you know, we have to spend our money wisely. Sometimes it's a matter of maybe our structures and things like that, but we try to get the money into the classroom as much as we can of the money we have. So as we wrap up, we talk about our immediate concerns. Well, it's always enrollment. I'm always looking at the enrollment. We want to make sure that what we thought was coming in came in, is coming in. So we're looking at 18, and we're always looking at 19 to see what it's going to look like. And our staffing people have to look at what we're guessing for next year, because they do a lot of important staffing decisions based on enrollment. You know, we'll carry over discretionary compensatory dollars. We do a cutoff now of purchase orders. We've done it for 4 years now, of April 15th. And that, you know, has a perverse way of saving money, because, you know, people might forget or something like that. But, you know, of course, we'll buy stuff that we need on a daily basis. I mean, we're not going to cut off, you know, gasoline or something like that, or supplies in the classroom. But this gets people to get their stuff in, and if they don't, well, then we'll carry it over. But it allows us to get everything in for the audit in time. And, of course, contract negotiations, we're always looking to see how that's going to end up. So fund balance-wise, as you can see the history on here, I only put in the 18 projected, and next time we sit down, we'll project out a couple more as we look at the new money coming in next year. But we're projecting a fund balance of about $6.6 million, which is overall about 2.9% unassigned. It'll probably be more under 2, and when that's not good, it's not. Statutory operating debt is negative 2.5%, so we have a little bit of room there, but we want to, I think if we just can make it through this year, and then we can start building up our fund balance again. Other funds are looking pretty good. School nutrition is looking to increase their fund balance by about $50,000 up to $882,000. Community services kind of hit a low at 17, but now they're going to build it back up to about 155 at the end of this year. Oops, I'm sorry, I have the wrong dates on this chart. And the construction account is, I mean, it is what it is. We spend what we have. Other factors that are going to influence it is our legislative outcomes. There won't be any new funding this year. I don't think. There was a proposal to put some special education funding out there, but we don't see that in any of the House or Senate bills. It may come in, I don't know, but there's no other real funding coming in except for maybe how you can spend LTFF money on safety concerns and maybe some more safe school levy money. Special ed funding, we're always fighting to get more money against the cross subsidy. Other revenues, we're looking at preschool revenues, and we have some new revenue sources and some other sites that have been approved. Pension laws, I don't know if they officially passed it, but the pension bill has been agreed on by everybody. It will increase our liability slightly over the next 4 years, although we were promised that we would get funding to cover that. But you never know. And those are the amounts that the district pays, the portion of PERA and TRA, and it usually runs about 7.5%. And then unfunded mandates, as we look at some bills that may have unintended consequences, perhaps school start times. If they say you can't pick up a student before 7, that could change the whole way we do our busing. We either stay in school really late or we add another tier, and tiers are very expensive for us. What's the next steps? We'll approve this budget tonight, so that it's in the books. Complete the staffing for next year's budget. Get all the staffing in the budget. Calculate state aid revenues and other revenues based on legislative actions and enrollment. And then we'll have the first reading of the 2018-19 budget at the June 7th board meeting. With that, if anyone has any questions, or after that, I would ask for a motion to approve the revised budget as presented.
One quick question. What does our voc ed instruction look like, and what is our, I guess I don't, the vocational educational instruction lines, and just looking where a lot of our increases were, but I don't know a lot about the vocational educational instruction line, I guess. Do you know much about that line?
Well, that's where all our career tech.
Okay, so is that 916 then, or?
It's a combination. We have some classes here, but mostly it's the ones that that 916 sponsors.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of our own classes. You have
right. I didn't realize it's separated out. If it was our own, so I was
they've
wondering
always
if it was all
separated
916.
vocational from the regular instruction.
Okay.
And that's one of the areas Mike Johnson's been working closely with the principals to look at what we can do to enhance the programs but bring the students back into the district as well, because we pay, I think, 900 and some thousand, is that what you said, Mike, a year? And those programs are awesome for the kids at Century College, but there's other things we can do here that they may not have to go. And it's a long bus ride. Kids miss the day at their school. But Jill, who runs the program at 916, and what they do at Century is phenomenal.
Mhm.
We're just trying to balance that, how much money that we spend. So it is included in the VOTEC, what we spend at 916,
Okay.
along with what we do here.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve our 17-18 revised budget.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Ron and second by Sharon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good info. Thanks, Dan.
10.5, approval of resolution of facility maintenance bond sale.
Well, we continue to perform alternative facility work through our mechanical system replacements and other projects throughout the district. Now classified as long-term facility maintenance. You did approve the 18-19 budget, but we always we have to submit 10-year plans to the state every year. We fund these programs, these improvements, combination of a pay-as-you-go levy and debt service by selling and with bonds by selling bonds. So we have a program that we get a lot of input from, help from Ellers, our financial advisor, and we have a program where we sell these bonds, long-term facility maintenance bonds, every 2 years to fund every project that we have on the list, to help fund every project we have on the list. So we presented pre-sale report last time, and today we had an announcement of the sale of the bonds, and tonight we have Joel Sutter of Ellers here to present the results of the sale, and I'll let Joel take over.
Thank you, Dan. Madam Chair, members of the board, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I know you're used to seeing Jody Zesba, and I'm not Jody Zesba. She had another commitment tonight, and I think Jody told you that our colleague Shelby McQuay would probably be here tonight. Well, Shelby didn't know at the time that her kids who are in elementary school had a music program tonight. So it's Throwback Thursday for others here. And I have worked with, a lot of you know me, but I've worked with the district since I think about around 2000 when Jody was the finance director here. So I do have a lot of experience with the district. I also want to apologize for leaving the room earlier, but I want to take just a few, I'm not going to tell a joke like Dan did, but I want to take a few minutes to tell a little personal story that I think you'll find interesting. So I was very interested in hearing the presentation on your early childhood programming, and one of the reasons I was very interested in it is that in the late 70s, early 80s, we lived in Cottage Grove, and my wife was actually the ECFE coordinator for the district in the mid-1980s, and that was at the time when the statewide funding for ECFE went through. So she got to oversee a large expansion of that program, and I'm very proud of the job that she did in really building that program, and it's really exciting for me to hear about how much that program has grown and all the other early childhood efforts you have here. The other part of that story is at that time I was working in the state senate as a research analyst working with the Education Finance Committee, and that was my first year in 1984 working for the Senate. One of my first assignments was to work with Senator Jerry Hughes of St. Paul on preparing a funding formula and legislation to create the statewide funding formula for early childhood family education. So it was a big celebration at our house that night with our young children and with my wife and I when that legislation went through, and we knew that it was going to be a great start for the young children of this district and children statewide as well. So just had to share that little story with you. And now we'll get on to the numbers and the bond rating and the other exciting stuff. So you should have in your packets the sale day report that summarizes the results of the bond sale. And I'm going to go through that and highlight some factors there. So we did take bids on your bonds at 10 a.m. and this morning, and like Dan, I'm not going to bury the lead here. I'll give you a quick preview of the good results of this. We received 10 bids on your bonds, and we got very good results with the interest costs coming in well under what we had projected in the pre-sale report. So that's the good news. And then I'll go through the report and hit some of the highlights here. And I want to spend a minute talking about the bond rating, because your bond rating was downgraded again from A1 to A2. That's still a pretty high investment grade rating, but it's a long ways from where you were a number of years ago when you had a AA1 underlying rating. And we included in the pre-sale report 2 reports from Moody's. They used to do a single report. Now they've split it into 2 reports. So starting on attachments page 8 is the press release that it's actually 2 pages of text about your district and 2.5 pages of Moody's disclosures. So so I want to mention a couple of things that are covered here. And I also want to talk about what impact a downgrade in your bond rating has. And I don't think this is a surprise to you, but it does increase your cost of borrowing. It leads to higher interest rates on your bonds. I think we took a look this morning at how much of a difference we think this recent downgrade made. It's not huge. Although it does sound like a lot of money, it might have increased your borrowing costs, your interest costs on this issue by $100,000 to $150,000. But if you look at the combined effect of all the downgrades you've been through over the last 5 years, and if you still had a AA1 rating, I think that combined effect of those downgrades is probably in the range of $500,000 additional costs on this bond. Now, spread over a period of 15 years and over the whole tax base of your district, that's not large, but you have to remember this affects every borrowing, every bond issue that you issue. So we've talked to you about, Jody talked to you about a refunding that we have an opportunity to do this fall that will reduce your debt service costs, reduce your taxes. the borrowing cost on that will be higher too because of the lower rating. And when you issue the next facilities maintenance bond issue in 2 years or any other debt that you issue, there is a cost to that. And I'm not lecturing you, I'm just explaining the impact of this, and I do want to talk about some of the factors that Moody's mentioned. So in their rating rationale on page 8, attachments page 8, they say the downgrade was based on what they called your very narrowed financial position, which means low fund balance. And they say it reflects difficulty in controlling expenditures driven by rapid growth in special education costs, and that's obviously one of the factors. It also incorporates your high debt and pension burdens. You have a lot of debt because you're a growing school district and you've needed to build a lot of new schools and additions and things like that. And you also have the combination of being a growing district with a lot of facilities that are older and have needed pretty significant deferred maintenance and upgrades in indoor air quality, HVAC systems and that. So you do have a lot of debt. Offsetting that are some positive things. They mentioned your large and growing tax base in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, strong resident income levels, enrollment growth is a positive, and the recent approval of your operating referendum authority. So they do take that into account, but it's really the fund balance that's driving the rating down. And they do in the credit opinion, which is the second report, they do talk about that in more detail, about the impact of the additional revenue from your operating referendum and capital project levy and the impact that that will have. So, when Moody's looks at your rating, they'll want to talk about what's going to happen in the future, but they're really going to base your rating on what's real and what has already happened. So they're really looking at your 2017 audited financial report and your budget for this year and things like that. So they do talk in here about factors that could lead to an upgrade in your rating, and I want to focus on that because I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel here. I think you are making a lot of progress, and they recognize it, and so there is an opportunity for you to get your rating up higher. What will need to happen is that your actual fund balance will need to show some increases, probably over a period of a couple of years. You'll need to demonstrate that you're in compliance with your fund balance policy. And then they also mention moderation of the debt burden and unfunded pension liabilities. So there is some opportunity to improve on that. If the pension bill that Dan referenced does become law, and as we fully expect it to, that will reduce your share of the state's unfunded liabilities in their pension funds, because that affects your rating. And if, as the legislation is drafted right now, it includes funding to cover your increased employer contributions, that'll be a positive as well. And in terms of your debt, it may seem like you're never going to stop borrowing money, but I would remind you that on your existing debt, you're paying principal every year of $20 to $25 million. So as long as you can limit additional debt so that it's not any more than that, that would be helpful. That may be difficult as you continue to grow, but that would affect your rating. So those are some of the factors that I know that you're already looking at, that you're already planning for, but that's what it will take to get your rating upgraded again. So any questions on that before I move on to the results?
Joel, in the fall when we look at the refinancing, and I don't have the report in front of me, so I apologize, but is there a number that if we'll be looking at putting our budget back or together for the summer, we're looking at increasing our fund balance, that's our goals. How much would we need in there for them to start looking at moving it? Do you have did they identify?
I just need to clarify your question. You talked about when we go back out next fall for the rating.
At us again in the fall, and say we added so many millions into our fund balance. Do you have an idea what number would start to?
Yeah, I don't have a specific number, and it's probably not going to happen by next fall, because all we'll have next fall is we'll have the audited, the 2018 audited financial results, and I don't think that's going to show a large improvement. Maybe it'll come out better than budget and show a little increase in general fund balance, but it's really that this next year when you're receiving the revenue, the additional revenue from your referendum increase and your and your capital project levy, well, you have an opportunity to increase the fund balance. But that won't affect your rating until that's actually reflected in your audited financial statements. So, maybe 2 years from now, when we do the next facilities maintenance issue, there'll be an opportunity for a rating upgrade at that time. But I don't have a specific number for how much it would have to improve.
So, just a comment. First of all, thank you for bringing that information forward, because that certainly was going to be my number one question when I saw the bond rating go down, because that's something as a board we've been preaching for a long time now. And I think, Dr. Jacobus, when your question, I was thinking it just quite the opposite. We just had the revised budget tonight that took our balanced budget from a positive to a negative. So our fund balance is going to get hit with $1 million now, or $900,000. So it's not going to be better. I'm more worried this fall that they see another decline and come back and want to do it again. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because they know the referendum's passed, and it's not till next year that we actually get to see those dollars, because this year's the critical year for us, and we can't do anything about it. The revenue's already locked, and I think to Dan's comment, it's really around how our negotiations are going to come in, quite honestly, because if they come in over budget than what we projected, that makes the fund balance go down even lower. So we really do have some huge risk involved here now for the fall bond rating coming through. So thank you for bringing that forward, Joel.
I would agree with all of that. I don't think there's anything I need to add to that, other than to say that when we were talking about this board meeting tonight at the office, Jody said you better be prepared for Ron to ask questions about how this affects the cost of power.
They're going to know me too well, I guess.
So.
Well, it's important. I mean, at the end of the day, as a board member, I want to do everything we can to put the money in the classroom. And certainly we prove that with how we rank versus administrative. And the other thing, though, we have to be fair to our taxpayers, too, and try to get to a balanced budget and increase that fund balance. Because at the end of the day, we need that rainy day fund, because that rainy day fund, folks, don't forget, that got us through the Great Recession. When we had all those buy downs, or that, using that money, that got us through the recession dollars so that we could give modest raises to all our bargaining units. When other people in the society were asking to have their wages frozen, people were losing jobs, we were able to at least try to give, and I'll be the first to admit it was minimal, but at least it was something. So we've got some still heavy lifting to do here to both, take care of our employees, but also be financially responsible to our tax base too.
And I think just a reminder of Dan's budget, when you look at salaries, the revised budget increased only $46,000. We've really held tight on not adding positions and trying to maintain where our ratios are. And then we have unexpected costs like snow plowing and things like that.
Yeah, and hopefully this fall you'll have your actual financial results, but you'll also have a budget, an approved budget for 18-19, and hopefully that will show improvement, and Moody's will take that into account too. But yes, if the fund balance continues to, or doesn't improve, you could be downgraded again. There is that risk. So I decided to focus on the positive side of things.
Yeah, thank you.
That's important to keep in mind too. So going back to the sale day report, we did receive 10 bids, and if you turn to attachment page 1, 2, and 3, you see the summary of those bids. The winning bid was from a large syndicate of underwriting firms led by Baird out of Milwaukee, with a true interest rate of 3.35% basically. Then we had bids from Jefferies, UBS Financial, Morgan Stanley, all in New York, Northland Securities in Minneapolis, JP Morgan in New York, RBC in New York, Piper Jaffray in Minneapolis, Citigroup in New York, and Mesro out of Chicago. So it was a really good mix of Wall Street firms and more regional firms, and we were really pleased to see that. It does show you that despite your lower rating, people are anxious to buy your bonds. So that's a good sign. Probably at a little higher rate than it would have been if if the rating were higher, but people still see this as a good value, buying your bonds. So that was very positive. And then we mention in the little italicized paragraph here under the summary results that the winning bidder submitted a premium bid, and this has been common. We've probably had a similar note on all of our recent bond sales with you, and we use that to reduce the bond amount. So the principal of the bonds and the pre-sale report, we had it at $23,265,000, and we can use that premium to fund some of the projects, so we're able to reduce the bond size to $22,580,000. So finally, the true interest cost of 3.35% is lower than the estimates in our pre-sale report, which were based on 3.66% true interest cost. And so as a result of the lower rate, total payments on the bonds will be just over $1 million less than we estimated in the pre-sale report. So there, I started and ended with the good news.
But truly, as a reminder to the public, though, those dollars are for building. We don't see those savings in general fund. It definitely helps the tax base from the overall tax burden, but it's not freeing up any more funds for us to use in general fund.
Good point, yes. So you have a resolution prepared by your bond attorney in your packets, and we will need you to approve that resolution.
All right, so we will accept a motion to approve the resolution of facility maintenance bond sale.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's moved by Katie and second by Ron. Any other questions? All right, so I presume we need roll call.
Pat Driscoll is absent. Heather Hirsch.
Yay.
Michelle Whitty.
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Ron Kath.
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jody gives us better information.
Huh?
Jody gives us better news than you give us.
10.6 will be the approval of termination of probationary teaching contracts, and Kevin Witherspoon will join us again.
Good evening again. So last board meeting, you approved a resolution terminating probationary teacher contracts. Unfortunately, there were two typological errors there. So one of the errors was it said 2017 instead of 2018, and the other error was that it said District 832 instead of District 833. So tonight we have to approve the corrected resolution. So I'm asking for your approval.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Sharon, second by Ron. Any questions on this? All right, one more roll call, please.
Driscoll is absent. Heather Hirsch.
Yes.
Michelle Whitty.
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Ron Kath.
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. 11.0, reports and comments. 11.1 is our superintendent's report.
Thanks. I just have two brief things to report on. First, our school district participated in the Woodbury Community Expo on April 7th and the Cottage Grove Community Expo on April 21st. We had principals and staff who volunteered at a booth to answer questions from the community and attendees that attendees might have had about the district. We get questions on all sorts of things, and a lot of times the principals are recognized, so they might have specific questions about the school or the district. Both events were great events and wonderful ways for us to engage with the community. We appreciate the opportunity to participate, and we want to thank our principals that were involved, and Shelley Schaefer organized everyone to get to the expos. And I know that a number of you have been to the expos, and they're great days and great, as I said here, a great way for us to connect with the community and answer questions. And then, over the years, we've done some different things to try to look at what our strategic plan is saying toward kids, and how I, as a superintendent, can spend time with our different employee groups. I did the Undercover Boss a few years ago, and I did that for a few years. And this year, Shelley talked to me about another way to take a look at modeling what we ask our teachers to do with kids. One of the things with our strategic plan and personalization, we ask teachers to get to know kids on a personal basis, know things about their life, know things about their background, how they come to school, what they bring to school from their culture. And so I began an initiative this week called Conversations with Keith, and it allows me the opportunity to visit with a number of our staff members in each employee groups throughout our system, and it's an opportunity for me to learn more about our staff and the work they do, but more importantly, to get to know them on a personal level. So we have a goal of personalizing, as I said, in our district and our strategic plan, and this was modeling what we'd like our teachers do with kids. So we have a number of questions that I've started and asked staff. We started, as I said, this week. The conversations have been very informative and enjoyable, and I look forward to continuing those visits. As you know, with the different responsibilities with so many different employee groups, to know them personally, I become an office and not a person. And so I really appreciate Shelley's thinking on this as part of that community engagement with our own staff. And the conversations I've had this week are great because we can talk about what energizes each person about coming to school and working with kids, and if they're not working directly with kids, why they enjoy the position and their goals for the next 10 years, and what I could do as a superintendent to help them thrive. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this spring, and we'll continue this in the fall since we got this started later in the year.
Very cool. Thank you. 11.2 are the student school board member reports. A little silent on that side. Needy is absent tonight. She's also on that band and orchestra trip. Lindsay cannot be here, but and Julia as well. But Julia from Eastridge did send a report, so I will read her report. Eastridge has been having a good but busy spring so far. First, I would like to recognize that several Eastridge students received state recognition at the Minnesota BPA State Leadership Conference in Minneapolis. They received state recognition in categories ranging from legal office procedures to network design team. These students will be attending the annual National Leadership Conference in Dallas, Texas in May. In athletic news, spring sports are finally able to practice outside, and their seasons are now in full swing now that the weather has cleared up and all teams are looking forward to great seasons. The juniors took the ACT on Tuesday while the rest of the school was able to have a nice day off. Lots of juniors and seniors will be attending prom this weekend, which will be held at the Intercontinental St. Paul Riverfront on Saturday. New this year, we had a prom spirit week from Wednesday to Friday, which included pajama day, tourist day, and workout day. That wraps up this month's events at Eastridge, and we are looking forward to a great rest of the school year. Thank you, Julia. 12.0 are future meeting dates. 12.1, May 10 is a regular board meeting, and 12.2, May 24 is a regular school board meeting. 13.0, pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.03, we will be going into closed session for labor negotiations. Following our closed session, there is a possibility that we will return for action with action items. Sorry about that. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be back.
We do.
Yes? Okay.
Is there probably roll call?
All right, we are back from closed session, so I'll entertain a motion to go back into the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second. All right, so moved by Sharon and second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We need a motion now to amend the agenda to add 10.7, the approval of the Association of School Bus Drivers of ISD 833, and 10.8, approval of the principal agreements.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Sharon and second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So 10.7 is the approval of our Association of School Bus Drivers of 833.
So I just want to make sure, because I have 10.7, Dana?
10.7.
Bus drivers, okay. And then I have 10.8.
Mhm.
Because those are the numbers. Okay, 10.8 is bus drivers?
10.7
Yours
on
are
the,
different.
10.7 on here is,
It's
7 is principals on our sheet.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're starting with bus drivers.
Okay.
So the purpose tonight would be to approve the tentative agreement with the Association of Bus Drivers. Negotiations towards a new collective bargaining agreement between the South Washington County Schools, ISD 833, and the Association of Bus Drivers have resulted in a tentative 2-year agreement to be effective July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019. Members of the bargaining unit approved the tentative agreement on April 25th, 2018. The economic costing of the tentative agreement includes a 25-cent per hour increase year 1 and a 35-cent per hour increase year 2 for bus drivers and at step 505. It includes a 30-cent per hour increase year 1 and a 25-cent increase per hour year 2 for bus assistants at step 505. Bus assistants, step 4 was eliminated. Open access high deductible insurance will be decreased to $539.26 per month, years 1 and 2 for single. Open access high deductible insurance will be decreased to $1,485.83 per month, year 1 and 2 for family. The VIVA contributions will continue to remain the same. Dental insurance increased to $42.96 for single years 1 and 2, and $120.98 for family for years 1 and 2, which are $1.14 for single and $3.90 for family, respectively. The administration recommends approval of this tentative agreement.
all right, I will entertain a motion to approve the bus driver's contract.
So moved.
Second.
Heather, you're throwing me off. Any questions on this? I know we just talked about it. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Do we need a roll call vote?
All right, that one is approved. 10.8 is the approval of the principals agreement.
Great. So tonight's intent is to approve the tentative agreement with Principals Association. Negotiations towards a new collective bargaining agreement between the South Washington County Schools, ISD 833, and the Principals Association have resulted in a tentative 2-year agreement to be effective July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019. Members of the bargaining unit approved the tentative agreement April 23rd, 2018. The economic costing of the tentative agreement includes longevity pay being dropped from the contract and replaced with a 7-step salary schedule. The new schedule and placement of principals resulted in an average salary increase of 1.75% year 1 and 2.49% in year 2. The agreement provides district contribution decreases for health insurance as follows. Open access single high deductible plan with VIBA decreased to $20.41 a month, year 1, and $0 increase in year 2. Open access family high deductible plan with VIBA decrease of $46.23 a month, year 1, and $0 increase in year 2. Open access single and family, no increases either year. Select choice single and family, no increases either year. This agreement also includes an increase from $950 to $1,625 for year 2 only for the HCSP. TSA increases from $4,000 to $4,500 per year in year 2 only. The administration recommends approval of the tentative agreement.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the principals agreement.
So moved.
Whoa, all right. So that was moved by Michelle and seconded by Katie. Any questions on this one?
Could I just point out, because as you look at percents, those percents change based on what the groups do with their health benefits and where they put dollars, and the percents are really not something that's easily comparable from contract to contract. So I just want to point that out when people look at what we've approved in the past, what we'll be approving as we finish this up, that percentages, as Dan has said, is something that you report, but you can't compare because you have to look at all of the elements in the contract.
And I guess just a further comment on that, then, to clarify, when parameters are set by the board, it's really a hard dollar number, because it's the hard dollar, the percents, quote unquote, don't pay the electric bill, as people will say, but it's the hard dollar. So whatever that incremental dollar expense, that's what affects our fund balance. So that's why there's a lot of work around trying to stay within our parameters right now. So, it's a hard dollar value that we're working towards.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no additional items, we are adjourned.
All right, thank you. All right, Chief, you got a new cornerback.
Is that?